Have you ever wondered what invisible force makes the entire globe revolve around a single currency? The answer lies in the trillions of dollars flowing daily to buy oil, all thanks to a secret deal struck half a century ago. This incredibly powerful financial system is known as the petrodollar, and it was born after one fateful television broadcast. In mid-August 1971, President Richard Nixon addressed the nation. "I have directed the Secretary of the Treasury to suspend temporarily the convertibility of the dollar into gold." Before this moment, under the Bretton Woods Agreement, the U.S. currency was backed by solid gold. Any foreign nation could knock on America's door and exchange paper reserves for physical gold bars. This setup made the U.S. dollar the undisputed and most reliable payment method on the planet.
However, Washington started printing massive amounts of banknotes to cover wars and social programs. Sensing trouble, global powers lined up at the Treasury, demanding to take their gold home. In response, the U.S. administration simply closed the gold window, transforming the dollar into a fiat currency backed by absolutely nothing. Global trust plummeted instantly, and by the fall of 1973, chaos erupted. Egypt and Syria launched a surprise attack on Israel, triggering the Yom Kippur War. The United States immediately organized a massive airlift of weapons to support the Israelis. Furious Arab oil exporters retaliated with a devastating oil embargo. The price of a barrel of oil instantly quadrupled, skyrocketing from $3 to $12. Gas stations ran dry overnight, and endless lines of cars stretched for blocks. America was left with a paper dollar and exploding inflation. The world's most critical resource was now being used as a weapon against them. The situation was dire, and the United States desperately needed a brand new financial anchor. Enter Secretary of State Henry Kissinger, who flew out with an unprecedented proposal. He arranged a high-stakes meeting with Saudi Arabia's King Faisal. "Your Majesty, you sit on the largest ocean of oil in the world," the diplomat began. "But out here in the desert, you look like a giant target with 'Invade Me' written on your back. So let's make a deal. You agree to sell your black gold exclusively in US dollars. And with all that excess cash, you will buy our US Treasury bonds. In return, we will provide you with absolute military security and protect your oil fields." In 1974, King Faisal and Saudi Arabia agreed to these exact terms. Within just a year, the rest of the OPEC nations fell in line and joined the system. Now, if any country wanted to buy oil, they first had to acquire US dollars. The brilliance of this petrodollar system relied on three core pillars. First, pricing oil exclusively in bucks guaranteed a massive, non-stop global demand for US currency. Second, energy exporters were suddenly swimming in oceans of cash. These billions of dollars flooded straight back into the United States. They were invested in US debt, securities, and Wall Street banks. Economists coined this massive wealth transfer Petrodollar Recycling. Third, Washington cleverly used these returning funds to finance its own government spending. A perfect, flawless, closed-loop system was running at maximum capacity. How Washington protected its currency empire was ultimately all about absolute control. And just like nation-states aggressively protect their financial assets, you need to aggressively protect your personal data today. Because right now, data brokers are secretly scraping your names, addresses, and phone numbers.
They sell your digital identity to scammers to the highest bidder. This is exactly why fake bank representatives call you out of nowhere. Fixing the damage of a targeted hack can take years of your life. But you can protect your personal empire in just a few minutes thanks to Incogni. Incogni methodically blasts official legal demands to data brokers, forcing them to delete your information. The best feature of their premium plans is the targeted manual removal tool. If you spot your data on a shady website, just send the link to their agents. They will wipe the records manually, keeping you completely off the grid. Hackers and scammers are powerless if they can't find you in the first place. Check the link in the description and use the promo code on screen to get a massive 60% off.
Now, let's return to the dollar, which by the 1980s had evolved into a financial juggernaut. It became the absolute baseline infrastructure of global trade. Being cut off from the US dollar became the economic equivalent of being disconnected from the internet. This turned the currency into Washington's most lethal economic weapon. If the US government expressed displeasure, a rogue regime's economy could be paralyzed instantly. But the fate of those leaders who dared to directly challenge this hegemony looks even more sinister. Saddam Hussein was the first to take this dangerous step, announcing a shift to the euro for oil exports in the year 2000. Just 3 years later, Iraq faced a massive military invasion. After the regime was overthrown, the country's oil trade was immediately switched back to US dollars. Then, Libyan leader Muammar Gaddafi proposed an ambitious project. He wanted to create a gold dinar currency for the entire African continent. Backing up his words, Libya accumulated a massive stockpile of over 140 tons of physical gold. But in 2011, the NATO intervention and the collapse of his regime put a violent end to Gaddafi's plans. Venezuela, sitting on the largest proven oil reserves in the world, tried a different approach. To bypass crushing sanctions, Nicolas Maduro launched a national cryptocurrency called the Petro. The White House responded by tightening the financial blockade and intercepting oil tankers.
The showdown eventually culminated in recent high-stakes U.S. operations targeting Maduro's regime. Of course, it would be foolish to claim that saving the dollar was the sole reason for these conflicts. Behind every war lies a tangled web of other motives and regional politics. But the overarching pattern is incredibly hard to ignore. Whenever someone challenges the hegemon, the empire strikes back. However, no great power can remain unchallenged forever. The tipping point arrived in 2022 during a major geopolitical crisis. The US froze roughly $300 billion of Russia's sovereign reserves. Simultaneously, the country's largest banks were instantly disconnected from the SWIFT system. Overnight, decades of national savings held in a safe system became absolutely inaccessible. This drastic measure sent shockwaves of fear through every other nation on Earth. Governments worldwide realized a terrifying new truth. Their dollar reserves belong to them only as long as Washington allows it. At that exact moment, the international community began coordinating actions to find alternatives. China started a massive sell-off of U.S. Treasury bonds, cutting its holdings drastically. Instead of paper debt, Beijing began continuously and aggressively hoarding physical gold. Russia and China shifted the lion's share of their mutual trade settlements into rubles and yuan. Brazil signed an agreement with China to conduct trade bypassing the dollar entirely. India began paying for imported oil using its own Indian rupees. Even Saudi Arabia, the very architect of the petrodollar, openly stated its willingness to trade in multiple currencies. The data confirms these tectonic shifts in the global financial system. The US dollar's share of global reserves has dropped significantly, falling from 72% at the turn of the century down to just 58% today. Central banks worldwide are buying gold at record paces. adding thousands of tons of precious metals to their vaults to hedge against the dollar. But an even greater threat to the petrodollar looms on the horizon: humanity's gradual transition away from oil dependence. Consider this. Today, 1 in every 4 cars sold on the planet is electric. If the world needs less oil, the foundation of the petrodollar will inevitably crack. The very system forcing the world to buy fuel with dollars will naturally weaken. Make no mistake, the petrodollar mechanism is still very much alive and functioning. American money still handles half of all global trade. And no single asset, whether it's the euro or the yuan, can dethrone the dollar alone. But for the first time in half a century, this well-oiled machine is facing real competition. It is being challenged not by one giant rival, but by a decentralized network of united players. As the old saying goes, alone we are weak, but united we become an unstoppable force.
We are witnessing the dawn of a completely new economic era, where the rules of the game are changing right before our eyes. A multipolar financial world is slowly being built from the ground up, and the era of absolute unipolar currency dominance might be entering its final chapter. Will the US dollar adapt and survive this unprecedented global pressure? Or will we see a new global reserve currency take the throne in our lifetime? The next decade will determine the financial future of the entire planet. What do you think about the future of the US dollar? Will it crash, or will it remain the king of currencies? Share your thoughts and predictions down in the comments. Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe for more deep dives into business history. I will see you in the next breakdown.